Good afternoon, respected judges, students, and my very worthy opponents. My name is Teresa and I'm here to talk about why we, the proposition, believe that mankind should indeed pursue immortality. I'd like to begin by defining a few simple terms you'll be hearing a lot in this debate. In biology, aging can be defined as an accumulation of damaged macromolecules. The science of life extension seeks to alter the biological pathways in aging with the ultimate goal of immortality. So what exactly is immortality? Well, we define medical immortality as the biological status we will have achieved in which we won't age or die of natural causes, though we could always die of physical trauma, like being run over by a truck. Now, throughout history, we've been rather accepting of death, understanding of the fact that it is an inevitable tragedy. But our growth has been pointing in rather different directions than our beliefs. In the last century alone, the average human lifespan has more than doubled and continues to grow at an incredible rates. Most, if not all, medicine is researched and found to expand the human life. So if we're already using science to increase our lifespans by short amounts, why is it that we cannot use it to expand it indefinitely? We believe that the pursuit of immortality in itself is going to do wonders for society. When mining for gold, one always expects to come across a bit of copper. What we're talking about is immersing ourselves in scientific knowledge so incredibly vast and technological data so astoundingly complex that we're bound to discover things during the process that could only be beneficial for mankind. Now, I'd like to step back for a minute and talk about psychology. The Stockholm Syndrome, for those of you who don't know, is a psychological disorder in which hostages express sympathy or have positive feelings towards their captors, sometimes to the point of defending them. Bonding, you see, is the victim's response to trauma. By placing themselves in the same position as their captors, they no longer feel threatened. So why exactly are we talking about this in a debate of immortality? It's because humans collectively have this attitude towards death. We like to think that death gives us purpose and drive, that the finiteness of life is somehow what makes it precious. But that simply isn't true. We're scared of death, and so we like to say that we're better off with it. You see, ladies and gentlemen, the planning process we're talking about isn't one that's going to happen rapidly. We're talking about research that will span decades and that will be carried out in a careful and judicious manner. Carefully thought out methods will be plotted out so as to ensure there are no adverse effects on the economy or the planet. And if indeed we did find a way to become immortal, we aren't going to impose it on others. Immortality would most certainly be optional. The dawn of immortality wouldn't mean taking away free will. So what exactly would change if we did become immortal? Take education. Right now, we're given 13 years of information with little to no practical application, and then we're asked to make a decision to define the rest of our lives. If immortality did exist, people would be able to live and learn at their own pace. We'd be able to gain ways of creative thinking we can't even conceive of right now. Imagine being able to fully explore your options before deciding what you wanted to do. Imagine being able to do everything you wanted to do. Woody Allen famously once said, "I'm not scared of death, I just don't want to be there when it happens." I think this is true for a lot of us. We're all more scared of pain than not existing because we're not going to feel in existence. This brings me to my final argument for today's debate. Right now, we all have to live with the pain of knowing that the ones we love will eventually be gone. Imagine how wonderful it could be if the people you cared for and admired could stay on forever. As long as we have people to love and as long as we have people to care for, ladies and gentlemen, we aren't going to get tired of living. We're not going to get tired of creating new memories, and we're not going to get tired of honing our passions. Don't let our opponents fool you otherwise. Love is what makes life so precious, not death. Our second speaker, Edeline, will elaborate on our main arguments for the motion, while our third speaker, Raya, will rebut any arguments made by team opposition. Our final speaker, Yolany, will then summarize all the points you've been hearing throughout this debate today. I'd like to finish off by saying that the pursuit of immortality is just as inevitable as finding the cure for smallpox once was. Only this time, we'll be finding the cure to the ultimate disease, death. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Team Opposition, let me begin by bringing forward what my worthy opponents conveniently forgot to mention. It is but of course the fact that the utopian idea of pursuing immortality would miraculously, with the aid of superior technology, cure the world of its many dire maladies. I would now like to take the privilege of calling my opponents terribly naive, as they have handily undermined the economical, the practical, and the sentimental viability of the aforementioned prospect. Let me also make apparent that no one is disputing Team Proposition's hollow scientific facts about how we can forever preserve our entire life's worth of cognitive data in a computer, so that, of course, for generations to come, people will know the color of my first car or the name of my pet tortoise. We are simply objecting to whether we should be allowed to pursue immortality, not whether we can. And debating so would mean veering off topic. Regardless, I take immense pleasure in establishing that my teammates and I are very much against the notion of engaging in this highly narcissistic act of preserving oneself eternally, as we believe it fails to adhere within the practical and sentimental compass of the human existence. It's only fair that we begin by educating our uninstructed counterparts about the simple notion upon which modern-day economics is based. The fairly uncomplicated model of how, when limited resources pitted against unlimited needs and wants, pivotal decisions need to be made regarding what and to whom these scarce resources have to be allocated to. Now, more often than not, a misallocation may occur, and the prospect of pursuing immortality, keeping in mind the copious amount of funds that will be required for research and implementing this model, it will further aggravate the disequilibrium caused. Let's not doltishly disregard the more chronic issues at hand that are begging for our much needed attention. Do my delusional colleagues really believe that bigger problems such as poverty and greater, rising increase in income inequality be left as a mere opportunity cost of funding an impractical and highly conjectural science project? Who's to say that staying true to human nature, there won't be any misuse of greater power? Are my opponents implying that bestowing this power upon a select few will be a harmonious transition and conflicts will not be imminent? I don't think so. As always, the social importance of the issue has been overshadowed by unneeded scientific theories and statistics. And in case my opponents have forgotten, in order for this to be a well-rounded debate, your arguments will have to be a little more substantial. Let's begin by taking a fairly relatable example, to better suit the intellect of Team Proposition, and look at how life would pan out for a middle-class man leading an average life in a futuristic urban wasteland, earning his living by way of a monotonous 9-to-5 desk job. Now, in the preposterously hypothetical situation where he is amongst the lucky few who are conferred upon with this grand blessing of being able to survive eternally, what exactly does he have to live for? Is he to do the same mundane task up until the point of infinity? What will become of his imminent life goals? What will become of his motivations, such as the pursuit of money, love, life, family? This clearly evidences that the notion of time loses its fragility and value, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is the crux of the problem. Immortality without any reason or purpose is absolutely meaningless. By way of their unwholesome arguments, Team Proposition blatantly suggests that by obliterating the one thing that is certain in life, we will all be able to reach a technological milestone as we near singularity. But unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, this proposition is nothing but a foolhardy intercourse of eccentric ideas. Hence, looking at the motion in a more objective manner, I'd like to conclude on behalf of my team, stating once more that pursuing immortality abandons the norms of humanity and abrasively disregards the sentiments and practicality of its implementation. And hence, this House stands intelligibly against this motion. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, respected judges, fellow teammates, and my worthy opponents. The concept of immortality is not black and white, as my opponents are so deluded to believe. There are many shades of immortality, and to many extents at which they can be understood. We, as my first speaker has already outlined to you, are focusing on medical immortality, which is to say, immortality of our biology, the reversal of the aging process, and immunity to organic threats such as death, disease, cancer, and mental deterioration. First, I will deviate a little to give you an insight into how medical immortality can be achieved. Our aging process is defined by the shortening of strands in our DNA called telomeres. This shortening occurs when every time the cell divides. Until the telomeres wear down, becoming so short that the cell is no longer able to replicate. This is called senescence. If, for example, cells in your liver were to senesce and die without being replaced, your liver can no longer perform its function. Liver failure, the buildup of toxins, diabetes, and the likes ensue, ultimately killing you. This is just one of the many thousands of natural ways in which our bodies betray us and slow down. To combat this, immortality can be achieved by maintaining or lengthening these telomeres using an enzyme called telomerase through gene therapy. I think we're all on the same page when we say that we are all for the progress of technology and of humankind, aren't we? Well, for that reason alone, that alone is reason enough to pursue this idea of immortality. If not for the practical use of it, then at least as part of the free and unhindered exploration of science. To rock the firm foundation of open questioning, investigation, and freedom of ideas upon which our future and of science is built on, with the assertion that immortality is an unpursuable, banned endeavor, is to destroy everything that science is about. And for this alone, more than any other reason, we cannot and will not agree with our opponents for the integrity of science and of discovery and innovation is at stake. Now, let me elaborate on what exactly is meant by medical immortality. Since the early 20th century, we have steadily increased the human lifespan, having doubled it worldwide within a single century, all because we have researched and developed ways in which to fight epidemic diseases, treat the flu, which has killed thousands worldwide every flu season, all the way to bigger problems, treating things like as monstrous as cancer. We've significantly improved our quality of life in such a short time span. And just stop for a second and think how much more it would, how drastically it would enhance our lives if we were to obtain immortality. This would give us the opportunity to live more vigorously and attain higher levels of happiness. If we are to extrapolate current trends to the future, without even taking into account the exponential growth of technology, which is contributing immensely to our improved quality of life, we still have reason enough to continue this pursuit. Now, on another note, when a person dies, everything that they ever thought, felt, and knew, the distinct nuance of their mind is gone in that single second into a veritable, intangible, complete oblivion, just like that. That information loss is a sin against humanity. To let even a single one of our beautiful, complex minds slip through our fingers when we are at a point in time where we can prevent that from happening is an abominable waste. Biological aging is the world's leading cause of death. Yet we have simply accepted this disease that has plagued us from the beginning of time, that has defined what our lives, who we are, and what our lives are worth. Realistically, the advancements in technology and science are allowing us to take on this task and eliminate the disease that we call aging. Through means of cryonics, nanotechnology, genetic engineering, and stem cell therapy, we are already on our way to achieving this medical immortality. In the pursuit alone of this task, we will undoubtedly make discoveries that can only be overshadowed by the ultimate goal of immortality. I know my opponents are probably burning with the most obvious question of all, which the first speaker brought up. Where exactly are we going to put all these people who are no longer dying and all the people who continue to be born? The answer, quite literally, is out of this world. New techniques being researched and developed as we speak are refining the possibility of space colonization into a sharpening definition. The dawn of terraforming is becoming a rock-solid reality. Knowing that my opponents are a little more politically than scientifically minded, let me break this down for you. Terraforming is the process of deliberately altering the atmosphere, temperature, surface topography, and ecology of a terrestrial body to imitate that of Earth so that it is made habitable for humans. Moreover, through immortality, we will literally be able to colonize the whole universe, as the problem with that at the moment is the aging problem we have with astronauts. This is the future of our race, an immortal one that will live among the stars and inhabit the whole universe. Something that our opponents are blindly standing in the way of. Ultimately, there will always be problems, but we are in an ever-steepening learning curve. And this, like every other chance in the history of science, will be a step towards the right direction, whether we are eliminating one of our wrong paths or getting closer to our abundance of goals for the future. The pursuit of immortality is not dangerous, but stifling its natural course of development is. And so, to censor this global advancement is the murder of science and innovation as we know it. Thank you.
To strive is to employ a ridiculous amount of effort. To strive is to focus and to strain energy to the point that you make a dream come true. The problem at hand, however, ladies and gentlemen, is that what my opponents are striving for is a nightmare. And to employ that ridiculous amount of time, energy, and money on a nightmare is, well, ridiculous. Ladies and gentlemen, while Team Proposition live in their little cocoons, their fantastical little cocoons of scientific wonder, and imagine a world where everybody gets to live forever, we, your sensible opposition, will be tackling the realities of today's world. Before I begin, I should point out, though, that we don't dismiss progress for the sake of progress, neither do we look down upon scientific enhancement and any sort of discovery. We do, however, dismiss progress at the hands of economical and humanitarian stupidity. My speech is going to consist of 5 main points. Firstly, I'm going to be talking about the economic and pragmatic implications of immortality laced with the ethical implications. Secondly, I'm going to be talking about how immortality is not just a scientific process. It takes into account the sentiments that come behind the essence of appreciating the human life. Thirdly, I will dismiss the idea of abundance, making clear that we lack now and will lack later the resources to fund and to feed this dystopian little utopian future. The infringement, point number 4, I'll be focusing on the infringement that immortality will have upon the natural human cycle and the conditioning of the human culture. And my concluding point, ladies and gentlemen, is about how immortality without task is absolutely meaningless. Now, coming to my first point, my introductory speaker has already, for the sake of my disadvantaged opponents, laid out the basics of modern day economics. It is no doubt, ladies and gentlemen, that striving for immortality would mean wasting copious amounts of time and energy. But it would also mean wasting copious amounts of money. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is something that we do not have. We don't have the money to fund something like this. And I suspect that my opponents don't realize this. And I also suspect that they don't understand the concept that while the rich get richer, the poor just get poorer. This means that even if we were to somehow fund this technology, the rich would be the only people that would be able to embrace it. Therefore, see, it's an inequality. I understand that in our current situation, the rich already do enjoy perks that the poor don't. I understand that the rich get better medical care and the poor don't. But this isn't just a perk. By processing something like immortality, you're drawing a painfully distinct line between the rich and the poor. A line that would make them two completely different species, ladies and gentlemen. One that is mortal and the other that is immortal. One that lives and the other that dies. This isn't just an injustice that results from the existing economic inequality. It's actually pinning a sector of the society down to the ground and telling them, hey, while we get to live for a couple of hundred more years, you are going to die eventually. Ladies and gentlemen, it takes me by surprise, leaving aside their obvious ignorance, how blatantly selfish my opponents can be. Now, to point number 2, in response to the second speaker's scientific rant, because honestly, I know that's all that she can come up here and do. We do not undermine the intelligence of our opponents. When it comes to the scientific facts that they throw at us, they say that they understand the science and the technology that goes behind immortality, and we believe them. We believe them because we know how restricted their mindsets are, but we also know that they do not understand the depth that comes with the human life. They don't understand that immortality is not just a scientific process. It takes into account the essence of humanity and the sentiment behind appreciating the short-lived human life. And I completely understand if my cocoon proposition don't get it, but we, ladies and gentlemen, your mature opposition, do. Thirdly, when it comes to the lack of resources that I was talking about, and here's where I dismiss the idea of abundance. I assume that my opponents might attempt to come up here and, produce some half-baked economical analysis on the idea of abundance. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no doubt that immortality would be a strain on our resources, because the concept would completely dismiss even the idea of an abundance of resources. The abundance of resources is largely based on the rising billion, which accounts for the lives and the deaths of people. It therefore implies not just inclusion of young people, but also exclusion of the old as they become dead weight to the society. And so logically speaking, it accounts for the births and the deaths. And only then can the idea be implemented into society as we know it. Ladies and gentlemen, to put it simply, immortality without cause is meaningless. You can come up here and talk about discovering and hobbies and interests and this and that, and go on about living forever, but you take away the charm that comes with learning how to play an instrument in the span of 6 months. You take away the concept of time, and you remain ignorant with the fact that not everyone is obsessed with the concept of discovering for the rest of their lives. And some people are actually obsessed with the concept of discovering for a short span of time, discovering as much as they can for a short span of time. Relationships would turn stale. The magic behind making the most of something because you have it for a limited amount of time would be gone. Why take that away from people? Moreover, to add to the team proposition's never-ending ignorance, by pursuing immortality, you are ridding the world of professions such as scholars, anthropologists, and historians. There will be nothing left for them to unearth, and the mysteries of the past will be perverted. Ladies and gentlemen, this is ridiculous because you cannot just strip the world of the liberal arts just to feed a few scientific minds, and that is my response to the first speaker's weak argument about education. Considering that last point, ladies and gentlemen, the proposition is chipping away at what makes humanity humane. I completely get that they would sink right into the arms of an overrated idea and completely ignore its ethical implications. But that's what we, team opposition, are here to do. We're here to save you from the noise that they make. We're here to prove to you that not every high school senior is as uneducated about the world as they are. We're here to prove to you that our generation is not illogical, and we're not getting more and more ignorant. That's just our numbskull opponents, ladies and gentlemen, and they make a small part of society. And honestly speaking, that small part of society does just one thing, makes a hell of a lot of noise. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Raya Bidshahri, and as third speaker today, I will be summing up my teammates' arguments and doing some final rebuttal. Ladies and gentlemen, this motion is not just something that affects every single one of us in this room, but our species as a whole. Because the time will come where we have to choose whether we want to strive for immortality or remain in our prehistoric bubble and let our naivety stand in the way of our progress. Because this motion is not just about that, but setting ambitious, daring, and extraordinary dreams for our species and achieving them. The fact is that my teammates today have presented you with real-life examples, scientific evidence, and logical explanations to why we should pursue immortality. Truth be told, aging has taken away more lives, hurt more loved ones, and set more limitations for our species than anything in the history of humanity, and we should do something about it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you can imagine all the extraordinary things we could achieve with this possibility, but there are some arguments from my opponents that need to be refuted first. Now, first of all, the second speaker here took ethical standpoint, telling us that it's unethical, immortality is unethical. However, this argument in itself is self-contradictory. I'll give you a few analogies if you find it difficult to understand. Now, cancer, for instance, if we have people dying, millions of people dying from cancer, no one says, oh, it's unethical, they're gonna die anyways, let them die. If you have a tyrant or a dictator taking away millions of lives, no one's gonna say, oh, it's unethical, let them die. Similarly, biological aging has taken away more lives than anything in the history of humanity. And ladies and gentlemen, my opponents have come up here and told us it's unethical to be immortal. Thank you. Moreover, they asked us this question of how we're going to invest or how we're going to fund in our project. First of all, my opponents need to realize that we have the money in today's economic state to invest in this, but we're not using it right. For instance, the US alone spends $1 trillion every year on warfare. $1 trillion. And it saddens me to see my opponents come up here and tell us we don't have the money to push our species forward. The fact is, we are throwing millions at fake auto-tuned artists, and we are throwing trillions at shedding blood and killing our fellow species. So yes, we have the money to push our species forward. Thank you very much. Nevertheless, they've also brought the point of overpopulation and lack of resources. This is not the first time that this has come up with anything in the history of humanity. In the 1990s, because of the population explosion, people thought we'd have limited resources. But what did we do? We invented genetic modification and we came up with a solution. So just because we don't have the solution today, doesn't mean we won't have tomorrow. Moreover, they've told us that we have a very naive and utopian perspective. Again, my teammates and I aren't surprised, because guess what? Stephen Hawking, he had a naive perspective in his time, because at that time, astronomy was considered pseudoscience. Anything new, any new technology that has come up in the history of our society, people thought it was outrageous, people thought it was naive, but that's the beauty of it. We're doing something unique, we're doing something no one else has ever done before, and yes, we acknowledge that it may sound crazy to you. Our opponents have also asked us what people would have to live for if they were immortal. What would we have to live for? We'd live for love, we'd live for learning, we'd live to explore the universe, we'd live to leave a mark for our human species in this universe. So no, there is a lot that we have to live for. They've also pointed out that it doesn't solve all the world's problems, like poverty, for instance. I would like to point out that poverty is a completely different debate, because we have enough food on this planet for everyone to go home bloated at night. But the problem was the distribution of food. So whether we're immortal or not, poverty is a completely different problem. Another point that they've brought up is the gap between the rich and the poor. We acknowledge this, and we're pointing out that there will always be a gap between the rich and the poor, whether you're immortal or not. It's a fact, it's a sad fact, but it's a fact nevertheless. However, we'd like to point out that every new technology that has come up was once expensive, but then it started decreasing in price as it became more abundant and started filtering down the social classes. For instance, with mobile phones, once upon a time, you'd have to be the richest person on this planet to own a mobile phone, but now everyone has access to it, even the people in the remote areas in Africa. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, my opponents have asked us what we live for. Again, my first speaker has said that without death, we'd have nothing to live for. Essentially, they're telling us that death adds value to life. Why? Why should this be the case? Because the fact is that this is the most flawed argument that my teammates have made today. Because it's not crying over your mother's grave that adds value to life, but all the wonderful moments you've shared with her. It's not the pain of dying that adds value to life, but all the memories and experiences you've made with your friends and family. What adds value to life is not seeing someone you're passionately in love with being taken away forever. It's all the unparalleled moments you've had with her. So no, I beg to disagree. Life is what adds value to life and not death. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to end my speech by pointing out how significant immortality would be, not just for us living here on Earth, but as a cosmic perspective as well. The universe is a very unpredictable place. And as Carl Sagan has pointed out, we are just tiny species living on a tiny pale blue dot that is Earth. And anything could wipe out our existence just like that. But by being immortal, we not only become more significant, but our chances of survival, our chances of leaving a mark on this cosmos become extremely significant. Hence, ladies and gentlemen, team proposition today has to win this debate because it's all about setting a phenomenal goal for ourselves and a mind-blowing future. Thank you.
Now, I would like to begin as the third speaker to rebut some of the points that the prop has made today. This will be fun. It was fun for me. I'd like to start by addressing some of the arguments that the first speaker made. She said that the kind of immortality that they are proposing would entail us not aging and dying of natural causes. That's wonderful. Except that what my, scientifically unenlightened mind, as they pointed out, understands out of this statement is that I won't die of natural causes, but it's okay if I get hit by a bus and die. That's alright, because that's not a natural cause. But doesn't that make deciding how long someone should be allowed to live completely arbitrary? And in retrospect, therefore, make this debate kind of pointless. Because really, what's the point then of achieving immortality? She then went on to say that it'll be optional. And a lot of them after that reiterated that it'll be an option, or you don't have to do it, we're not going to force you into it, you can choose, and this idea of free will that they presented to us, and that it's an option, it's a choice. But what they forgot to mention and outline to me, and I'm sure to you as well, is how exactly is this option going to be presented, and to whom exactly? Will priority be given to those with exceptional intellectual property? Priority be given to those who have fat pockets? Or will it be based on your age, or your race, or your nationality? Where exactly is this basket of people going to come from? How are you going to choose them? Don't you think that it's a little bit of an elitist and arrogant idea to somehow pick some over others and say that, you know what, you deserve to be immortal, no, not so much. They said that death doesn't add value. It's not dying that adds value to your life, it's the memories and the love that you share and all of that, and that's beautiful, that's poetic language, love that. But here I would like to explain to them a simple concept that perhaps, not being all that economically aware, they don't understand. And that concept is of marginal utility. And that the more you have of something, the less you appreciate it. And so that's the concept that we use when we measure the importance of our life. And so when you commodify it as something that's immortal and that's unending and that's something that you will get beyond your actions that might somehow put it in danger, you sort of stop caring about how you treat it. And so the utility that you achieve diminishes. They then said that they'll use a carefully thought out process, and this will be done in a very legitimate way, and they'll have all these rules and regulations and laws, and they'll carry this out well. But what they forget is that already we see power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so what they say when they somehow insinuate that it's okay to give some people the option of being immortal because they are in a position of power, what does that mean, ladies and gentlemen? Where does that leave normal people like you and I, people who live in the streets, and people who don't probably have that power? And what does this encompass, finally? They then, of course, went on to explain the various ways in which immortality could be achieved, and how it's possible, and how it's already happening, and that's wonderful. And that's wonderful, really. We commend you on that. And we're proud to be the species that can think of things like this. And so we're not questioning you on whether it can happen. We're questioning you, and the debate here is whether it should be pursued. And so we don't argue the fact that, sure, there's a possibility. What we argue and what we debate and what we stand by is that it should not be pursued. And why do we do this? Because we simply believe that instead of it being the most ambitious, daring, and extraordinary thing, it's something immaterial, pointless, and inefficient in the current economic state that we find ourselves. And so to us, and I'm sure as to many other people, it's nothing but a crazily passionate science project for the elite. Something that we don't identify ourselves with. They also gave this example of how US alone spends about $1.3 trillion. And that's true. But like the statement states, US alone. It is only countries like the United States who can afford these things. And so where does that leave countries from sub-Saharan Africa? Where does that leave countries from the Indian subcontinent? Where does that leave countries from the Far East of Asia? How do we match up to your standards? They call this something unique, and they call this something that no one else has done. But ladies and gentlemen, we as the opposition identify this as something power-hungry, something purely elitist, and something that our world really doesn't need right now. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, respected judges, my worthy opponents, and my fellow teammates. My name is Yolany Aher, and I will be the fourth and final speaker for Team Proposition. And I will once again be reiterating why the pursuit for immortality is most definitely something that we should continue to strive for, coming down to personal choice, as we have mentioned. And I would just like to ask, what part of personal do you not understand? And I'll also be talking about how immortality, and in fact just the pursuit of immortality, will drastically change our lives for the better. Now, watching this debate, being able to gain perspectives from both sides, I've realized how many insubstantial arguments the opposition have presented. What we, Team Proposition, have given you today is a plethora of advantages to immortality and the mere pursuit of it, and we've also provided you with several methods as to how this could one day be achieved. We've given you solid, concrete arguments as to why we should pursue this life-changing conception, and we refuted time and time again Team Opposition's rather pathetic arguments, if we can call them that. Now, I'd like to start by breaking it down. We, Team Prop, have provided you arguments for, firstly, the pursuit to immortality, and secondly, immortality itself. To quickly summarize everything that's been said, the mere pursuit to immortality will advance science and technology in leaps and bounds. In other words, the pursuit itself will give rise to many, many breakthroughs. Now, by saying we shouldn't pursue it, ladies and gentlemen, the opposition have adopted a rather ancient, caveman-like mentality and are supporting the standstill of science. They're endorsing the stagnation of advancement and progress, and are firmly rooted in their idea of ensuring that we do not push ourselves forward. Now, the advantages of eventually reaching the ultimate goal, that is immortality, are abundant. As the previous speakers of Team Prop have already mentioned, our quality of life would increase drastically. Life expectancy has doubled since 1900 and continues to increase. If, say, just a mere 20 years added to our lifespan could have such a dramatic impact on our quality of life, take a second to think of the possibilities that immortality or the path to immortality will bring. Moreover, life, especially human life, is precious. We thrive on being an intelligent, complex species. Now, being this intelligent life form, immortality will not only enhance our value, but also increase our chances of survival as a species. Adding on to what I said previously, immortality itself will allow science to grow and will allow us to push ourselves forward. Furthermore, time will no longer be a limitation, and so we'd be able to accomplish things on a much larger time span. And lastly, if there is one thing that we can all agree on, if there's one thing that my opponents and I can see eye to eye on, it is that death is one of the most horrific, disheartening things ever. The leading cause of death is biological aging. Through medical immortality, which I will talk a little bit about in a bit, we can overcome this tragic concept of death by natural causes. So in simple words, most people are dying because they are too old, which is too tragic a reason for us to sit back and do nothing about it and let nature take its course, which is apparently our opponent's solution to this problem. Now, going back to medical immortality, my first, second, and third speaker have come up here and repeatedly stated a concept that my opponents are refusing to grasp, and so I'll repeat it one last time for you. It is the biological immortality that does not include death induced by physical trauma. For example, as they mentioned, getting hit by a bus. You can still die, you just won't die of natural causes. And my second speaker has gone into great detail about how this works with regards to telomeres. Now, some of you may believe that Team Prop is being naive or perhaps even blindly optimistic, thinking that we could achieve something as immense as immortality. But what you have failed to understand is that we actually have science on our side. Rock hard, reliable, concrete facts. So no, we're not painting a utopian picture here. We're painting this picture based on the science behind immortality. To the end of this discussion, it is quite evident that Team Opposition hasn't given us any real, substantial reasons as to why we shouldn't pursue immortality. They've thrown in a few weak, rather futile arguments in a failed attempt to mask just how in out of their depth they are in this debate. The only decent thing they came up with is that of overpopulation and running out of resources on Earth, for which we have provided an excellent solution of colonizing space through hydroponics and terraforming. And if you were listening, my second speaker went into great detail about this. We, Team Proposition, have adopted a mentality comprising of a combination of science and innovation. We are being rational, yet creative. Yet all Team Op has done is try to lure you into their little prehistoric bubble where science is sitting idle, stagnated, and rotting, and progress is virtually non-existent. There's this preconceived notion that death is what gives value to life. This is incorrect on so many levels because life is what gives value to life. And as I mentioned previously, life is precious. Now, all arguments aside, this is something that all humans and all individuals want. Who doesn't want to live and cherish life forever? Who doesn't want to not have to see their loved ones get buried? Who doesn't want an endless number of chances to fix their mistakes? It's valuable benefits like these that makes immortality such a significant pursuit for humanity, not just as individuals, but our species as a whole. Thank you.
Ladies, gentlemen, respected judges, and worthy yet misguided opponents, allow me to draw upon an analogy that aptly explains what my team has just, to use a colloquial term, served to my opponents. My introductory speaker plunged the knife into the side of Team Proposition. My first speaker pushed it in deeper, and my rebuttal speaker, as you clearly saw, twisted the knife. Now, it is left up to me to pull out the knife and deliver the final blow. Let me first say that if you still aren't clear as to whether or not we have understood your stance on the matter, clearly you weren't listening to Faiza close enough. Now, moving swiftly on, as you have seen, my team has argued this topic on three main fronts: the economic, the practical and pragmatic, and the sentimental. I'm sure that we have impressed upon you that given the current makeup of our global economy, we simply cannot afford to spend our money anything other than alleviating the suffering of those already marginalized by the current makeup of our world. And certainly nothing that will require as exuberant a sum, something you still have not addressed as to pursuing the ambrosia for immortality. We, the world is trying to swim itself out of a depression so deep, it has made entire countries crumble beneath its weight. Economically speaking, all of our energies must go to breaking out of this dark depression. This is something that Team Proposition has continually ignored, even though it has been brought up by every single member of my team. The prop keeps saying that we are against science. This is preposterous. we are for the intelligent application of science to matters currently conducive to the world. Go ahead and cure cancer. We're fine with that. But keep your feet on the ground. Don't compromise the possible in favor of the plausible. We commend your deep knowledge on science. We're not denying that. We are not... moving on. Honestly, have you seen the world lately? We are killing it, ladies and gentlemen. And no matter how much you say about terraforming, the fact remains. No country is still going to put its money into something that higher reaching. I commend you for that thought. That is a beautiful thought, but it is not something that's going to be reached given the current economic priorities of the countries on this world. You mentioned America and how it spends $3 trillion on defense. I'm not denying that. No one is denying that. But you just try to tell America to stop spending its $3 trillion, the most powerful country in the world. You try to tell them that because NGOs have, the United Nations has. But 4 kids with a dream are going to be able to convince the United States to funnel its money into channeling the pursuit of immortality? Go on, make my day, try it. We have to invest in real sustainable development, not tiny hybrids and not terraforming just yet. Furthermore, millions of people stay starving. Millions of people do not live to see the age of 40. Can we try and fix that issue first before trying to extend the lifespans of those that already live to 80? I would like to see that happen first within my own life. And thank you. Also, you keep bringing up the fact that most people die because of biological aging. You know what else people die of? People die of getting raped on the street. People die of genocide. 500 people in Syria were found killed and no one knew a thing. And you're telling me that the lack of pursuit of immortality is unethical? That is perverse for you to imply that immortality is something we should at all be pursuing when there are people right now who need our help. And speaking of this perversion, Team Prop keeps bringing up the sentimentality of losing your loved ones. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, death is sad. But you know what else is sad? Denying someone death. I'm sorry to be macabre here, but I want to die one day. Yes, you have brought up the fact that you're going to be giving people a choice. And yes, we have taken that in. But we have posed the question to you that who decides which people? Faiza has mentioned that the absolute power causes absolute corruption, and that's the thing. The main people who are going to be vouching for immortality are the same people who perpetuate genocide on a daily basis. You're telling me that these genocidal maniacs won't jump at the possibility of immortality? And who is to say that won't be granted? Anything can be commodified and privatized in our days, and something like immortality is bound to be privatized. You want the word of great men to be preserved. You would like to see the work of Aristotle still preserved. Wait a second. We do still read Aristotle's work. What about the other Greek guy, Socrates? No, wait, we do still read his work. What about Plato? Unfortunately, we still get to read his reductionist work. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what you're talking about when you say the work of people isn't being preserved by hardworking individuals like scholars and historians, and by bringing about immortality, you'll be obliterating the majority of what makes the liberal arts such a beautiful field. Indeed, I have gone on too long, but it is only to set in stone what my teammates have already impressed upon the audience. Surely, the immortality, while it may be attainable, shouldn't be attainable. Life is short. Let it remain so, and let it retain its worth. The most precious things are limited, so why commodify life itself? Thank you.